Hello, welcome everyone to this EPUAP e-learning module, and it's my pleasure to tell you something about measuring incidence and prevalence of pressure ulcers injuries. Before we start, it is important to make yourself familiar with a few concepts that are important in the context of epidemiology. Generally speaking, epidemiology is a study of the distribution and determinants of health conditions or events among populations and the application of that study to control health problems. So there is a purpose around epidemiology, and ideally it is helpful to improve health. Closely related to epidemiology are concepts such as incidence and prevalence, which are concepts describing disease frequency. Incidence is a frequency of a new case or health condition or event among a population during a specific time period, and prevalence is a frequency of an existing case, health condition, or event among a given population. So population is also a relevant term you need to keep in mind. It's a total number of persons in a particular group. And usually members of a population share a common characteristic. For example, a common characteristic is being a hospital patient or being a nursing home resident or living in a country, for example. A subset of a population is a sample. And the sample is usually what matters, because most often in epidemiology, it's impossible to study the population, that means everyone, but to study a sample and then make inferences. When we translate these concepts of disease frequency to pressure ulceration, it is important to measure the incidence, and translated into this context is pressure ulcer incidence, the frequency of new pressure ulcers or persons who developed a pressure ulcer during a specific period of time. There are a number of incidence estimates available in epidemiology, but the two most important ones are cumulative incidence or the incidence rate. A cumulative incidence is a proportion, so that means you have a numerator and a denominator, and the numerator in our case are the number of persons who developed a pressure ulcer divided by all persons who are at risk for developing a pressure ulcer during a specified time period. A rate is never a proportion, it is a frequency of events over time. For example, person time or bed time, whatever, it's also often called incidence density. And again, translated to the pressure ulceration context, it's number of newly developed pressure ulcers divided by the time period of persons at risk. I will show you a few examples to explain these frequency measures in a second. Here you can see a very simple graph, and we see 6 persons. It can be patients, nursing home residents, home care clients. It's just an example. And we follow these 6 persons up from day 0 until day 10. Next, what you can see here are the pressure ulcerations. For example, person number 2 developed a pressure ulcer here. At the same time, also person number 6 developed a pressure ulcer. A little bit later, person number 3 developed a pressure ulcer. And in addition, person number 6, some days later again, just developed another pressure ulcer. For example, a heel pressure ulcer or a sacral pressure ulcer. If we now want to determine the cumulative pressure ulcer incidence, again, remember it is a proportion. We have 1, 2, 3 persons out of 6 persons in total who developed an ulceration. So it is 3 persons divided by 6 persons, it's 50% or 0.5. It's a simple proportion of cumulative incidence. Incidence density is also quite straightforward to calculate. Remember, It is the rate of occurrence of events over a specific time period. In our case, the time period is 10 days, and we have 6 patients. That is, every patient is followed up for 10 days. So we multiply the number of patients by the number of days, which is 60 days in total. And what we observed here is 4 pressure ulcer events. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the calculation is quite straightforward. We have 4 ulcerations divided by 60 days, which is 0.07 per person day. You can multiply this by 100, and then we have 7 per 100 person days. In hospital care, we also sometimes say bed time or inpatient time, whatever, it depends. But the principle of calculation is very similar. Now let's have a look at prevalence. Prevalence, remember, is also a concept about disease frequency, and this is a frequency of existing pressure ulcers or persons who have an ulcer at a specific time period. Very often, this time period is very short, so it's one point in time, and this is also called point prevalence. Point prevalence is a simple proportion. It is the number of persons who have an ulcer at one point in time divided by all persons who are at risk for developing a pressure ulcer at one time point. So this is one very frequent measure in pressure ulcer risk research. And another one is a period prevalence. It's a little bit similar to incidence. It's again a proportion, but not at a time point, but at a period. So number of persons who developed a pressure ulcer or who have a pressure ulcer during a time period divided by all persons who are at risk for developing a pressure ulcer during a time period. This example you have seen already previously. Again, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 persons, and these persons develop pressure ulceration, person number 1, person number 2, 3, and 6. Let's assume you do a cross-sectional study or a prevalence study at day 1. So you look at all these 6 persons, and then you detect a pressure ulceration here and here. So the calculation is quite straightforward. You have a point prevalence of 2 persons divided by 6 persons. It's 33%. Assuming that those subjects who developed a pressure ulceration have a pressure ulceration at least for the subsequent days, of course, and then you would do, let's say, a prevalence survey 3 days later or so. There is an additional patient here. These patients still have pressure ulceration. Then the prevalence would be 3 persons divided by 6 persons. The period prevalence is very easy. Overall, we have 3 persons who developed a pressure ulcer divided by 6 persons. It's 50% during the whole 10 days period. So, but please remember, the difference between prevalence and incidence is a period prevalence is just looking at cases who have an ulcer, and the incidence is cases who developed or subjects who developed a pressure ulcer. This is a difference. Now it's up to you, a very short quiz that you calculate these estimates by yourself. So there is a ward with 15 beds, 14 which were occupied last week. So last week is 7 days. 4 patients developed a pressure ulcer. In 2 patients, the ulceration occurred for the first time on the 3rd day. The other 2 patients developed then on the 5th and 6th day, respectively. 2 of these 4 patients developed 2 pressure ulcerations. So now it's up to you. Please complete the following table, and we are looking for cumulative incidence, incidence density per day, and point prevalence at day 4. Good luck.